What's happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers EARTHSPARK Deluxe Class Grimlock. Now, as we very quickly check out the packaging, we get a great CG render based on his latest design, and as we come around here to the back, these product shots are what completely sold me on this guy. They look fantastic, and to be honest, it does seem like Hasbro are pulling out all of the stops for this final wave of kind of the Mandroid Build-A-Figure, because even Nightshade looks awesome. So definitely cannot wait to check out these two, and then we will finally have completed this Mandroid Build-A-Figure, which in itself I think looks better than McAdam that was a part of the Cyberverse line. So with that being said, let's crack Grimlock out here. Let's see whether or not he's also the king of EARTHSPARK as well as the Dinobots. And bang, here we have the EARTHSPARK Grimlock, and overall not only is he a really cool action figure, but it's also an incredibly awesome design. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this previously, but personally I think some of these EARTHSPARK characters are the best animated versions of themselves that we've seen since Transformers Prime, since some of those Fall of Cybertron / War for Cybertron video games, because this Grimlock is a great reimagining of the original G1 character. I mean, it's like they took that original 80s design and just updated it, because pretty much all of the major design traits that we saw from the 80s Grimlock are translated for the most part pretty decently into this EARTHSPARK Grimlock. But anyway, let's check out the details. So first of all, banging looking face sculpt. I really like the mouth shield and just the colours. You know, this is golden plastic, but it does look pretty cool. I like how it pops in the centre when in comparison to the huge grey arms that we have on the sides, and the kneecaps. These are so badass because the T-Rex tail is kind of spiked. This does carry over to the robot mode design, and I think that looks really awesome. I mean, he can pretty much knee the Decepticons in the face and take their heads clean off. So yeah, that's fantastic. And as we spin this guy around here to the back, again, a direct throwback to the original 80s design in the sense that we have kind of the over-the-shoulder wings, which are made up of the center of the T-Rex, and we also have the T-Rex head here. Now, my only issue with this figure overall would be that some of the pieces are borrowed from the Cyberverse Deluxe, and to be fair, the engineering is pretty much identical, but because we do have quite a few new parts on this guy, some pieces don't really lock into the pre-existing sculpt too well. So for example, on the Cyberverse Deluxe, this head would actually tab into this slot, but because this is completely brand new for EARTHSPARK, it does just kind of dangle there, and when you're messing around with this guy 9 times out of 10, bang, the backpack will detach, which can definitely be a little frustrating, but besides that, a really solid looking design. Now, as we check out his articulation, I'm going to be honest, I think these EARTHSPARK figures are definitely way better than I was expecting. They do kind of follow suit what we saw from the Cyberverse Deluxes, which is awesome. So the head is on a ball joint, it will look up and down, it can also rotate left to right, these wings can be angled backwards, so I thought that was pretty cool. You know, if you wanted to get them out of the way, you can absolutely do that, which is pretty awesome. We do get some very sturdy ball joints packed into the shoulders, which can hinge out to the sides, not to the greatest range. I kind of understand as to why once we check him out in T-Rex mode, but we also get ball joints here for the elbows, which are pretty awesome. They'll bend roughly to 90. Unfortunately, no articulation at all out of the wrists, besides the transformation joint. It is a little lackluster, but you know what, it's okay. And we can also use the T-Rex toes as knuckle dusters, which I thought was kind of badass. You know, maybe if his weaponry fails him, he can just deploy these bad boys Wolverine style and take out Decepticons with one single blow, which is pretty cool. We do get a very nice waist joint as well as hips, which can kick forwards that far, back to that far, but again, as you guys can see, the backpack does just like to detach if you accidentally knock it in the wrong way. So yeah, that's kind of frustrating, but they'll also kick out to the sides. We get thigh swivel, unfortunately not quite to 90 here out of the knee, but to be honest, is more than adequate. And then finally, the articulation packed into the ankles is sick, so this can rock backwards, forwards, as well as side to side, and that does allow you to just get him into so many dynamic poses, especially with the weapon, which we'll check out in just a second. So yeah, overall in terms of robot mode, it is a fantastic figure and has turned out way nicer than I was expecting, because to be fair, I was just thinking that maybe it was going to be a repaint of the Cyberverse Grimlock that we saw released a few years back, when in fact I'd say 90% of it at the very least is completely brand new. So yeah, definitely by far one of my favourites out of the wave. Now, as we check out Grimlock's accessories, first up we do get the Mandroid Build-A-Figure piece. Very basic in terms of design, but you know, not too badly detailed. Unfortunately, much like McAdam, it's looking like the Mandroid is not going to have the greatest articulation, but at least it'll be a cool display piece. And then next up we get some actual firepower for Grimlock, which I was so happy to see, because unfortunately with the Cyberverse Deluxe, whilst that did include the crown and kind of the blast effect, he never came with any firepower nor weaponry. So it's kind of nice to see them fix that here with this EARTHSPARK release, and much like his character design, a great throwback to the original 80s weapon that Grimlock sported back in G1. So yeah, really happy to see this, and it is a pretty badass looking weapon. Now, as we check out a few comparisons in robot mode, here we have the EARTHSPARK Grimlock on the left and the Cyberverse version on the right, and they are basically, for the most part, completely different molds. This EARTHSPARK Grimlock, I'd say, borrows just a few pieces, so as you guys may be able to tell, the thighs are exactly the same, the insides of the legs are the same, and the forearms and the hands are the same, but besides that, I believe he is completely brand new. The transformation, however, is basically just a direct carbon copy, so if you can transform the Cyberverse version, then you'll know exactly how the conversion here for the EARTHSPARK release works. And I mean, even as we spin them around to the back, you can see the tails end up in the same way. The whole mechanism that goes on here for the feet is identical. So yeah, transformation is not too spicy nor too different when in comparison to the past one, but in terms of a personal preference, I much prefer the design here of the EARTHSPARK Grimlock. As I said previously, some of these EARTHSPARK designs are the best animatic versions of these characters I think we've seen since Transformers Prime, since the fall of Cybertron video games. They do look pretty banging. Next up, here we have him alongside EARTHSPARK Optimus Prime, which was a figure which unfortunately I never really got round to reviewing, but fantastic release, a lot better than I was expecting, and yes, it was even better than the Warrior class, which I didn't think it would be able to top. But as you guys can see, all of these EARTHSPARK figures are deluxe classes, so they're all roughly exactly the same in terms of height, but I think these look pretty cool next to each other. Two leaders, the leader of the Dinobots and the leader of the Autobots. Here we have my two personal favourite figures from this EARTHSPARK line, maybe soon to be dethroned by the upcoming Nightshade because they look so awesome. Perhaps they're going to top Bumblebee, not too sure at the moment, but yeah, these two are absolutely fantastic. If you can only pick up two releases from this EARTHSPARK lineup, I could not recommend these guys enough. They are awesome. Here's Grimlock alongside Megatron, which is undoubtedly the weakest out of the entire wave. Not the biggest fan of this figure at all. Considering how awesome some of the other releases have been, they 1000% could have done a little better here with Megatron, and it's a shame because by far, EARTHSPARK has the most interesting character for Megatron that I think we've so far seen today on screen. So it is a shame that we didn't even get a Voyager version of this character design because again, it is such a cool take on the Megatron design. Kind of rounding things off for the EARTHSPARK comparisons, here we have him stacked up alongside Terran Twitch, which is also a very good figure. I was quite impressed with this one. Unfortunately, I had a few QC issues in terms of transformation and the tolerances of the ball joints, but yeah, a pretty banging design. It's kind of a shame that these EARTHSPARK figures aren't actually in scale with each other because I think it'd be cool to have this as a deluxe class Twitch and then this Grimlock design as a leader class. That would be absolutely fantastic, but in terms of an entire wave, as you can see, I mean, in terms of design, they don't look too bad alongside each other. And then finally, here we have EARTHSPARK Grimlock alongside the Cyberverse Slug, which is a fantastic deluxe figure. I was actually kind of surprised just how well done this release was, especially in terms of transformation, but because these are deluxes, again, they are pretty much identical in terms of their scaling. Now, as we get stuck into Grimlock's transformation, as I've kind of previously alluded to, basically a direct carbon copy of the Cyberverse Adventures version, although 1000% the most difficult to transform EARTHSPARK Deluxe. It has an incredible high fiddle factor, which in some areas can make it kind of frustrating, but anyway, to kickstart things off with, you're going to want to take the fists, fold these backwards, and then take the toes and flip these forwards. So do the same here for this side. We can then rotate here at the elbows, take the shoulder joints, and bring them outwards. You're definitely going to want to make sure you do this because unfortunately they may or may not bump into other pieces, which we're going to start transforming in just a second. So do the same here for this side, spin around here to the back, and if it hasn't done so already, basically just begin loosening all of this up. And then as you guys can see, we do in total have a set of 4 different tabs in here. Now these two are going to lock into the neck, and then these bottom ones are going to peg into the dino tail. Just note that we may or may not undo some of the transformation that we're doing now later on, which can again be a bit annoying, but you have to do it now because if you don't, it's just going to be flopping around and going to make things way more harder. So snap the neck in and then bring this up and over and lock it into place over his bot mode shoulders. So that's pretty much the easy part out of the way. We can then rotate here at the waist, and then the next step is to come here to the shins. As you can see, we get this hinge joint because this is going to come forwards. Once you've done that, you're then going to want to rotate here at the thigh, take this section here, fold it outwards, and then fold this pin joint here down. You're then going to want to take this robot mode foot, extend this pin joint, and then take this entire section here and lift it up and over. That's basically one side set up, so do the same on the opposite side, although this time with a slight twist. So to kickstart things off with, take that shin and just fold it in upon itself. You'll then want to rotate here at the thigh, straighten out the tip of the tail, and then extend that pin joint down. Now this time, the real only difference between the two is this foot does extend slightly further out. So pull that all the way outwards. What we'll then do is hinge this entire section here upwards, and personally I'd recommend to combine both of the sides of the tail now. So snap that there into place, we can then hinge this here all the way up, fold this in upon itself, and as I mentioned previously, we do get a set of tabs here on the foot which are going to slide into these slots on the inside. So basically just mistransform that slightly to allow enough clearance for this to slide in there, and just snap those tabs and those slots into one another. Now this can definitely be kind of fiddly to line up, but bang, there we go, fully snapped in. We can then come up here to the top, make sure that this foot looks something along the lines of this, and basically just conjoin the two halves, take this here, snap this over the top, and for a few finishing touches, extend the jaw here forwards. And bang! Here we have EARTHSPARK Grimlock fully transformed into his T-Rex mode. And if we were to compare this figure to some of the promotional material which is currently out there for this guy, this surprisingly does seem to be pretty smack on to how he will appear in future episodes of the show. And overall, again, it's a pretty decent design. I was very surprised to see just how much paint is packed into this figure. I mean, here for the head, the eyes are painted, these pieces are painted, and the entire bottom jaw is fully decked out in a really nice silver, which is cool. I like some of these kind of blue highlights that we have here along the side, and the spinal column, fully spiked, it does look awesome, and I like how the tips of these have all been fully decked out in red. And as we flip him here to the underside, I also like how he conceals super nicely. I mean, this toe kind of becoming the belly is awesome, because otherwise this would be completely hollow and you'd be able to see the robot mode head. So yeah, for a deluxe class, I am incredibly impressed by the engineering of this guy. It is just a shame that it does have a high fiddle factor no matter how many times you transform him, but definitely a really cool T-Rex mode. Now, in terms of articulation, unfortunately the head cannot rotate left to right, but the jaw can open and close to a pretty decent range. Unfortunately, this specific version does not include a blast effect, but again, if you own the Cyberverse version, that effect is compatible with this guy, which is definitely where I'll be keeping it for my collection. But in terms of the T-Rex arms, they are static, but because these are the robot mode shoulders, these can rotate forwards and backwards out to the sides, and we also do get a pretty decent range here packed into the elbows, and the tail unfortunately is static. But I mean, check that out, it appears to be a missile launcher, and to kind of further weaponize him up, you can smack his blaster here onto the top to kind of have him gunning down Decepticons even in T-Rex mode. Now, as we check out a few comparisons here in base mode, here we have EARTHSPARK Grimlock alongside the Cyberverse version, and much like in robot mode, I much prefer the design here for the new Grimlock, the colour scheme, the proportions, just the design looks way better than whatever this monstrosity was with this Cyberverse version. I mean, to be fair, it looks more like a mechanised Godzilla than a Grimlock, but yeah, there is no competition to be had here in my opinion. Because they both borrow the same engineering, I do wish in some ways that the design team could have put a little creative spin here on this guy and had found a way to have concealed the fists, because that probably is the only real obvious piece of the robot mode which does just stick out in the T-Rex mode, and it was also an issue I had here with the original Cyberverse version. But as you guys can see, in terms of T-Rex mode, again, the new EARTHSPARK version destroys the previous Cyberverse release in my opinion. Here he is alongside that Cyberverse slug, and as a team, they do look pretty decent. In some ways, I'm hoping that if we do get kind of a second Build-A-Figure wave, that Hasbro begin giving us more Dinobots. I mean, it would be kind of cool to recreate the original G15, but as it stands, we only have two, and this one's from Cyberverse and not from EARTHSPARK. But yeah, in terms of their beast modes or their Dinobot forms, I don't think they stack up too badly at all. And then for kind of an average vehicle mode comparison, here we have EARTHSPARK Bumblebee. So again, my two personal favourites from this Mandroid Build-A-Figure wave so far. And so, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers EARTHSPARK Deluxe Class Grimlock, I think it's definitely safe to say that Hasbro saved some of the best figures for last, because this Grimlock is banging, as I've mentioned so many times. Definitely one of my favourites out of this Mandroid wave. Wicked robot mode, fantastic Dinobot mode, a very fiddly transformation. You know, in some ways, I do wish maybe they could have introduced a few additional steps when in comparison to basically just copying the transformation from the Cyberverse version, but it's worked, because as I said, both robot and Dino mode look fantastic. Accessories are decent. Maybe would have been nice to have seen them reintroduce that blast effect that we saw from the previous release, but I imagine because none of the other EARTHSPARK figures have come with blast effects, they didn't want to make the exception here for Grimlock. But it is a fantastic figure. If you can only pick up, I'd say, one or two EARTHSPARK Deluxes, then this is definitely one you have to track down, and I am now super excited to pick up Nightshade, because they also look to be a fantastic addition. So you guys let me know what you think of Grimlock down in the comment section below, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.